Trucker Dump for January 27th, 2014. Episode 99, 4 Ways to be an Awesome Trucker.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Happy New Year, folks. Hope y'all had a great holiday. Todd McCann here. I know I had an awesome one. By a strange twist of luck, I managed to be home for Christmas, New Year's Eve, and all of New Year's Day. As an over-the-road trucker, this rarely happens because we usually haven't been back out on the road long enough since Christmas to have earned any home time. But this year, I somehow managed to get a load that was going through the house on New Year's Eve. Not only that, but due to the holidays, it didn't have to deliver for a few days either. Woohoo! So anyway, my night started when I got home around 9 o'clock. When the evil overlord pulled up to my passenger side door like she always does, I got out to walk around to that side. But to my surprise, I was bull rushed by 4 masked men wielding fully automatic assault rifles. The little plastic airsoft bullets stung like the dickens as I ran for cover. Problem was, there was 4 of them and only 1 of me. And all I had on was sweats and a light sweat jacket. It was like wearing nothing at all. Well, I finally made it to the car, knowing that the evil overlord had likely told them not to shoot the car. I was right. After a quick trip into Walmart, you know there's never enough food in the house for 5 growing boys. That's 3 of our own nephews, plus my oldest nephew had 2 of his friends over. But after Walmart, we rolled in the new year at a little roadside park having airsoft wars while the evil overlord sat in the car and flashed the headlights for a strobe light effect. So basically, they handed me a single-shot pistol, and it was 4 against 1, with their automatics. But I was smart this time. I had grabbed my heavy coat from the truck and was wearing that, so it only stung when it got my legs. Of course, they soon figured that out. Later on in the wee hours of the morning, we fulfilled every teenage boy's dream by starting a bonfire and giving them stuff to burn. When they got bored with that, they brought out the rifles again and shot at me as I walked back and forth like one of those duck shoots at the county fair. We finally went to bed as the sun was coming up. All in all, it was a fun and memorable New Year's Eve without a drop of alcohol. Good times. So anyway, back to the show. First off, you blog readers may have noticed that there was a Trucker Dump 98.5. Well, it was a shorty, so here's what it was all about. You've probably already seen this in multiple places on the web, but just in case, let me fill you in. I'll just read you the press release since it was so short. Now casting nationwide, trucking couples. Do you work together to make sure your load arrives on time and in one piece? Do the challenges on the open road test the strength of your relationship? Are you one of those lucky truckers who gets to spend hours on the open road with the person you love? A major cable network and a major production company are searching for trucking couples for a new documentary television show that follows them as they navigate the road and their relationship. Most people enjoy road trips, but the challenges facing truck drivers can put a strain on anyone, especially when your significant other is along for the ride. We are searching for all types of couples, married or dating, young or old, all ethnicities and sexual orientations, who will show us the reality of life when partnered on the Great American Road. No matter how long you've been together, as long as you're with your significant other and on the road, we want to hear from you. Please submit the following information to truckercouplescasting@gmail.com. Again, that's truckercouplescasting@gmail.com. They want you to submit your name, your contact info, that's a phone and email, your home location, recent photos of you and your partner, and a brief paragraph describing yourself, your partner, and life on the road. That's the route you drive, the time spent away from home, common challenges, etc. As a note, once you submit your information, a casting producer may contact you with more information. So there you have it, folks. Get your name in quick if you want to be on this TV show. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of people trying to get on it. Next up, I should let you know that the Gridiron Greats contest that Rudolph Foods was running is over. Carol D. was the winner of the $1,500 and a buttload of pork rinds. Thanks to everyone who participated in the contest. Thanks also to everyone who gave to Trucking Santas this year. Now, I don't have all the facts, but I'm pretty sure they fell short of their goal to fulfill all the wish lists. At least that's what I'm guessing due to all the tweets that were still coming just before Christmas. Maybe next year we'll do better. Start saving up now. Okay, on to the entree. I've got a long one for you today. I tried to shorten it, but I just didn't have any luck. It sets itself up pretty nicely, so let's not waste any more time. Here's 4 ways to be an awesome trucker. Oh, actually, I can't get on with it quite yet. You ought to go over to abouttruckdriving.com and check out the image for this blog post. It's a caricature of a super trucker. It's pretty cool. It's used with permission from Bruce Outridge Productions. Now, this particular image is from a sticker that he created. There are a bunch of other trucking stickers on his site, and Bruce does all kinds of other artwork too. Go over and check out his stuff at bruceoutridgeproductions.com. And you spell Outridge just like it sounds. Outridge. That's bruceoutridgeproductions.com. Okay, now on with the show. In case you haven't noticed, it's January of a new year. Now, for some odd reason, we puny humans associate this with being able to make a new start in life, as if we couldn't do it any other time of the year. But for a change of pace this year, why don't we aspire to something that we can actually do? I mean, really, what are the odds that you're actually going to learn Mandarin Chinese? Face it, when the Chinese take over the world, they really aren't going to care whether you know how to ask them where the toilet is. So instead, let's lower our standards and work on 4 ways to be an awesome trucker. Awesome trucker goal number 1, get healthier. Okay, I decided to do this one first because I'm expecting about 95% of you to skip on down to the next topic. But before you do, hear me out. I'm not saying that you should set some lofty goal that you'll never be able to reach. Let's start out with something simple like your food. Here's an idea. Reduce your portions. I was in a Hardee's not too long ago when they asked me if I wanted to upsize my meal. I said, no thanks, I don't want to look like the rest of these truckers out here. That got 2 of the employees talking about how disgusted they are with some of these truckers. One of the ladies said, I just don't get it. These huge guys walk up and lean over the counter completely out of breath. Wheezing, they say, give me a monster burger meal and upsize it to a large. They usually get a dessert, too. Some of these guys have black and blue legs from diabetes. What are they thinking? Well, the fact is, no matter how big your gut is, the human stomach is only about the size of your fist. There's a link to some really cool stuff about the stomach on the blog post and also in the show notes. Now, when I eat fast food, I almost always stick with the small fries and drink. We don't need more than that. We want more than that. And when you're ordering that value meal, be sure to do this next thing. Lay off the soda. Experts say that cutting soda from your diet can cut 24 to 35 pounds per year. There's a link to an article about this. So go with water or unsweet tea if you've got the option. If you just can't handle unsweet tea, make a compromise and mix a little bit of sweetening into it. It doesn't take much to give it a hint of sweetness, and it's a heck of a lot better than going with full sweet tea. That crap is too sweet anyway. No wonder you Southerners don't have any teeth. Next up, replace your snacks or cut them all together. The only time I have snack foods in my truck is right after Christmas. I blame my mother entirely. Thankfully, she went a bit lighter this year and stuffed my stocking with more healthy stuff than candy. Despite this, I put on 5 pounds since after Christmas. That's why I don't keep any snacks in my truck. But if you are a snacker, just replace your Cheetos with almonds and your M&Ms with raisins, and toss in some apples and bananas while you're at it. You'll be surprised how good you feel when you cut the junk food. Next, get some exercise. Now, once again, I'm not suggesting you start training for a marathon. Start with something like walking around the truck stop parking lot a few times. If that's all you can manage, well, you're still better off than you were before. If you want to move up a step, take a look at a free app I've been using on my iPhone called the Gorilla Workout app. It's also available on Android. There's a link to that in the show notes. Now, I'm far from being in shape, but I look like Olive Oyl compared to most of you guys. Now, don't be afraid that it's going to be too hard of a workout. The level 1 workout starts out with really easy workouts like one wall push-up, a few sit-ups, and a few squats. For the most part, it builds slowly so you can keep up. All of these exercises use your own body weight, so you don't have to buy a lot of equipment either. These workouts don't take very long either, so that's always a plus. If you're ready to move on up from there, check out my workout videos called How to Do a Full Body Workout Inside the Cab of a Semi. There's a link to that in the show notes. Or just go to abouttruckdriving.com and type in video in the search box. Of course, you can do most of these exercises outside if you choose. I just like to do them inside so no one bugs me. Another great resource for all things trucker fitness is the Healthy Trucker website. Of course, there's a link in the show notes to that website, or you can just go to thehealthytrucker.net. Remember, anything you do to make yourself healthier is making you more awesome, even the smallest of things. Hey, I'm going to break in on myself here. I hope you guys can't hear what's going on in the background. It's a Friday night. I'm close to Kansas City. I'm right off of I-70, and there is cop after cop after cop, probably chasing drunkards. Who knows? But I'm trying to cut them out. I'm trying to quit talking as soon as I hear them. I don't know if any of it's seeping through or not, but there's been a buttload of them, and well, I'm just trying to weed them out for you. But if you hear them, hey, I'm not in any trouble. It's not me. Okay, back to it. Awesome trucker goal number 2, truck stop etiquette. Oh my, this is a long one. I'll make it as brief as possible. Cue the bullet points. First, when you're driving through a truck stop parking lot, go to moderate speed. Now, I've heard people say only go 5 miles an hour, but that's just too stinking slow unless there's some chance of a pedestrian or another truck popping out suddenly. But hang on, speed demons. 30 miles an hour is too fast even in a wide open lot. There's a happy medium in there. Find it. Next, before you pull up to back into a parking spot, let other truckers go around before you block the whole aisle. Actually, this rule is in effect everywhere, not just truck stops. I had a driver do this to me last night. At a shipper, he made like he was going to back into a spot, but instead he got out and opened the trailer doors, effectively blocking me from my trailer. Now, I realize some places force you to do this due to limited space. This was not one of those places. Uncool, man. Uncool. Okay, now when you do get parked, make sure you're between the lines. Now, if I have to explain why this is a good thing, do me a favor and smash your fingers in your cab door the next time you get a chance. Thanks. Okay, this is a biggie. The fuel bay is not your drive-through window. Now, if you can get your food without delaying the driver behind you for more than a couple of minutes, have at it. However, if when you go inside you see that the line at Subway is longer than the shower wait at a Love's truck stop, go back out and park your truck. Or, if you're one of those finicky people who insist on fresh fries every time, please, oh please, just go park it first. Okay, now this next way to make you awesome is really easy. When you're in the fuel bay, actually give a damn where you're squirting the water hose. That is all. Be considerate of other drivers when parked. And just because you're awake doesn't mean everyone is. I once had a trucker wake me up with his loud music when he pulled in. It was around noon, but I had driven all night. I had to get out of bed and go pound on his door. He peeked out and promptly ignored me. Well, I stood there pounding for another 2 to 3 minutes before he finally turned it down. By the way, if this happened to you at the Flying J in Walton, Kentucky, well, I'm the guy who called your company and reported your inconsideration. Cheers! Control your mutt. I typically hate dogs for a variety of reasons. The first of which is dodging dog poop as I walk into the truck stop. Here's a rule to live by. If there's a direct line between any truck and the truck stop, don't let your dog poop there. I'm pretty sure even dog lovers don't like picking dog crap out of their Adidas treads with a plastic spoon. Secondly, if your dog parks all night, I officially hate your guts. Make him shut up for Pete's sake. And if not, just leave Fido tied up outside to your truck so I can accidentally run over him when I pull out in the morning. Here's a good one. Stop flirting with the staff. This one is for the dudes. Not only are you holding up progress with your lame attempts at humor, but you're also more likely to develop a superpower than you are to impress any of these ladies. Let it go, man. Except that they don't think you're the least bit funny, or cute, or even remotely interesting for that matter. Okay, here's one that my friend Brian on Twitter faced not too long ago. If a driver looks occupied, don't talk to him. It's amazing how many drivers will interrupt me when I have a movie playing on my computer and I have earbuds in. Now call me stupid, but I just can't remember the last time I stuck in my earbuds thinking, man, I sure hope all these truckers don't think I'm being unsociable. I am being unsociable. Go away, jerkface. And for the record, I've tried the ginormous headphones that make me look like Princess Leia, too. It didn't help a bit. Okay, here's one I tweet about every once in a while. If there's a shower wait, hurry the heck up. As I said earlier, I've been doing the gorilla workout lately. There's a link to that in the show notes again. I usually do this in the shower room before I shower. But here's the rule. If there's a shower wait, I skip my workout. Not only is this the considerate thing to do, but it's also an awesome excuse to skip a workout. It's a win-win. So that's it. If people are waiting, do what you have to do and get the heck out of there. And finally for this topic, the truck stop bathrooms. I have 4 simple rules that will make the truck stop bathrooms a better place for all humanity. 1. No grunting, wheezing, heavy breathing, or groaning. Unless you're crapping out one of those giant worm things that invade your intestines, there's no need to make noises while you're doing your business. And by the way, I've got a link to a really cool YouTube video of one of those giant worm things that gets in your guts. It's pretty gross, but it's cool. Okay, second rule. All poop and poop-related accessories go in the toilet. Number 3, flush. Need I say more? Number 4, don't make or leave a mess. Actually, this leads nicely into our next topic. Awesome trucker goal number 3, conservation. Bet you weren't expecting that, were you? So exactly what does conservation have to do with leaving a mess? Well, it starts off with a pet peeve of mine, water consumption. Folks, water is a valuable resource. Why are you wasting it? It happens all the time on various levels. The worst offender is the driver who walks in and the first thing he does is turn on the water full blast. Then, with the water going full bore, he gets some paper towels, wipes down the counter a bit, sets his manly man grooming kit down, forages for his toothbrush and toothpaste, and finally starts brushing his teeth. When he's done brushing, the water stays running while he shaves, washes his face, fixes his hair, and generally admires himself in the mirror. About 90% of that 5 to 10 minutes, he wasn't even using the water. Ugh. The only guys who make me madder is the gerbophobes who leave the water running and walk out of the restroom. Jeez, folks. If you're OCD about germs, just say so, and I'd be happy to turn it off with my tongue. Now, I may not be awesome at a lot of things, but I do excel at water conservation. Whoever you are, I encourage you to examine your morning ritual practices. I'll bet you a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that you'll see ways you can conserve more water. Here's my ritual. Observe my awesomeness. 1. Don't turn on the water until you need it. Duh. Get the toothpaste on the brush and then give the spigot a quick turn on and off. Ta-da! Your brush is wet. How hard was that? 2. Brush until you need to spit. Well, spit already. Give the spigot another quick turn on and off to wash your nastiness down before it has a chance to stick to the sink. Oh, come on. It isn't that hard to turn it back off. Your hand is already on the handle, for crying out loud. 3. Repeat until your teeth are pearly white. Okay, I guess a dull yellow will have to suffice. Turn on the water only long enough to clean your brush and the sink afterwards. Number 4. To finish up your ritual, if your hands, face, or comb isn't requiring water at that precise moment, turn it off. I often find myself wanting to say something to these water abusers, but I never do. Why not? Well, stay tuned for awesome trucker goal number 4. But first, let's finish up with conservation. Paper towels. If they've got an air dryer, opt for that instead. If you aren't a fan of those, you can still take it easy on the paper. I saw a TED Talk video last year about paper towel usage, and I've been doing it ever since. The video is only about 4 minutes and 32 seconds. I put a link to it in the show notes. It's really a simple method of shaking your hands in a controlled manner so you don't get water everywhere, and folding the paper towel to maximize its absorbency. Yeah, now I realize that sounds like a hokey bounty commercial, but it seriously works. I kind of make a game out of it to see how little paper towel I can get by with. You'd be surprised how little it takes. So no more excuses for you guys who rip off 5 or 6 paper towels and barely use it. Next up for conservation, littering. Not much to say here except knock it off. I once watched a guy at a fuel bay crawl up onto his running board, grab his little trash can, and dump it on the ground by his truck. It all fell at his kid's feet, which just so happened to be about 3 feet from a trash can. It stayed there when he left the fuel bay. Nice parenting, Dill Munch. Really, folks, do we have to go over this? Trash goes in the trash can, preferably without full bottles of piss in it. Hey, and if you dog owners want to pick up your dog's poo, well, I'm sure the trash bin will accept that too. Man, I may as well wish for Warren Buffett to adopt me while I'm at it. And lastly for conservation, of course, fuel. Alright folks, if you need to idle your truck to stay cool or warm, by all means do so. But if you're going to be out of your truck, why does your truck need to idle? Granted, I know there are exceptions to the rule, such as faulty starters, a sleeping co-driver, and cold temperatures that cause fuel to gel. But if you're running in for a shower, why leave it running? Not only is it spewing fumes into the air, but it's also sucking fuel at a rate of about 1 gallon per hour. So not only are you saving money for yourself or your company, but you're also helping sticking it to the man. So that's it for conservation. Now trust me here, I love trees, but you'll never see me hugging one. I just see that God gave us this great planet and He told us to subdue it and use it. I can only assume He meant to use it wisely, and being wise makes you awesome. Awesome trucker goal number 4, take a chill pill. Chill pills are great for your well-being. They take stress from your life. They cause you to relax. And as I've already mentioned, they keep you from confronting water abusers. Side effects may include dizziness, nausea, crazy bone tweaks, shin splints, cooties, and bleeding from the ears, rectum, and pee hole. Alright, when you're at the customers, ask yourself this. When was the last time yelling at a shipping or receiving clerk actually accomplished anything? Any experienced trucker will tell you that the louder you bark, the slower they move. I listened to a guy cuss out a forklift driver the other morning. Guess who got finished first? Him or me? Rightio. So not only are you not being professional, you also aren't helping your cause any. Time to pop a chill pill, man. If another driver takes your dock, try to assume someone made a mistake. With a calm voice and a smile on your face, ask the offending driver if he was told to take that dock. Better to assume that than to accuse him of cutting the line only to find out he was just following the confused directions of an overworked shipping clerk. Now, if he's one of those jerks who is well aware that he's cutting the line, take it up with the shipping clerk, again with a pleasant tone. If neither party refuses to correct the issue, take another chill pill and overdose on calmness. It's really not worth the stress of an intense argument, or in a worst case scenario, a beating and or an all expenses paid trip to the Hoosgow. When it comes to other drivers, you really need to take a chill pill. Once again, when another driver does something stupid or just plain mean, pop that chill pill. Getting your blood pressure boiling is going to accomplish jack squat. Here's an example of both right and wrong behaviors. I was in the fuel bay at the Pilot in Marion, Illinois. The team drivers in front of me took forever to fuel, even with 2 of them, but they had finally pulled up. I pumped my fuel and waited for them to move. They weren't in the truck, so I went back to my cab and waited. A few more minutes, and I took a chill pill. I thought, well, I'll just make good use of my time. I'll run in and leave the toilet a big present while I'm waiting. I did. Afterward, I came out, and they still hadn't moved. I went in and had them paged. Finally, they come walking out at a leisurely pace. But they still weren't moving. Now that's when I saw them walking to the McDonald's next door. Man, I was mad. I ran toward them hollering that they were effing jerks, which is pretty harsh for a guy who doesn't normally cuss. Well, clearly my chill pill had worn off. But what good did it do for me to get my panties in a wad about it? If they heard me, they did a good job of pretending they didn't. I was all wound up, and they couldn't care less. This was a giant failure on my part. Granted, they were jerks, too. But a couple of nights ago, I made up for it. I was at a shipper with limited space. I saw a local driver unhooking from a trailer, so I crowded him a bit so I could scoot up and let another trucker get off the street. Well, when he pulled out, the poor guy had to do a 3-point turn in order to get out. In a bobtail. The horror of it. Well, he just so happened to catch me walking alongside my trailer when he drove by. He laid on the air horn, which was deafening right beside my head. Now, I'm sure he expected me to react, but I didn't. I actually had a smile on my face while he was blasting away. That's a win for me. Now, could I have flipped him the bird or yelled at him? Yes, I could. Did he deserve it? Yep, he sure did. But again, I ask, what good would it have done? I forgot about the whole ordeal in a few minutes, while I bet he was steaming out the ears for a good half hour. Ha! Who got the last laugh, punk? In short, jerks will be jerks, and unfortunately, there really isn't anything we can say or do that will change them. Old King Solomon summed it up pretty well in Proverbs 15:1, where he said, "A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." The Bible says King Solomon was the wisest man in the world. Hard to disagree with that here. Have you ever tried to argue with someone who refuses to argue? It just takes the wind out of your sails. And when you can be the bigger man or woman, that's awesomeness personified. So to sum up, I hope you find a way to implement at least some of these things into your daily life. If you're an underachiever, just make getting a prescription of chill pills your priority. Once you start letting other people's meanness and stupidity roll off your back, you're on your way to having a better year. And if you're going to remain a fat, grunting, water-wasting trucker who lets his dog poop in my path, well, you're going to need all the relaxing you can get to ease your guilty mind.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Okay, we got a good chunk of feedback coming in this time, so let's get right on it. First, Chris McFadden, who goes by Driver Chris Mack. Did I get it right that time? Yeah. Okay, he wrote me just a short little email that said, "Here's my comment on Trucker Dump 97, a trucker's worst nemesis, complacency." And actually, what it is it's a link to his website, because it was so stinking long, he figured I wouldn't read it on here. And he's right. So, if you want to read what he has to say, there's a link in the show notes to it. It's kind of a messed up link, so I'm not even going to try to say it on here. Next up, a guy named John writes in and says, "I enjoyed reading about the differences in transmissions." He checked out TD099 automatic or manual truck transmission. He says, "I'm in my mid-30s and I'm seriously thinking of entering the transportation career field. I was wondering if you could provide any insight, words of wisdom, and the best way to go about getting in the trucking biz. Thanks, and keep up the great, entertaining writing." Well, thanks for the kind words, John. Glad you enjoyed the article. Well, it took a while to get back to John, but I somehow actually overlooked this comment. But I did write him back, and I told him the same thing I'll tell you. I like to direct prospective truckers to an interview I did over at jobshadow.com. The full link is in the show notes, or it's jobshadow.com/interview with a truck driver 2. It goes into a lot of detail about being a truck driver. And I'd read all the comments too. There are a lot of good discussions there. Actually, I've been wanting to cover some of those discussions here, but, I keep getting enough comments that I really don't have time for them. But, John, have a glance and let me know what you think. Anybody else? Check that out. Let me know how you like that article. I'm pretty proud of it, as I think I've said about, 1 billion times. Next up, Wolverine Tom writes back in on Trucker Dump 93, the driver's seat phenomenon. He writes, "Hey Todd, been following your podcast. Thanks for keeping me company when I need a chuckle. I like to people watch and maybe see someone I might know, rarely, but I think it's mainly to see how I measure up to others. Kind of a safety thing. I remember going to New Orleans about a week or two after Katrina with my then 12-year-old son. Taking him out on the road with his daddy for the first time? Priceless. But the company sent me there to get a load, which I had to wait for till the next day. I figured we'd get a bite, so I tried to find a truck stop in a hurricane flood zone. That wasn't the brightest move on my part," he says. He says, "Went to an abandoned mall where some truckers set up a makeshift truck stop. Needless to say, I didn't stay long. I seen the lot lizards and drug dealers and users and abusers come out like roaches. I didn't even stop the truck. Well, I know, a bad move on my part, but you never know what you're going to see out here. Thanks for letting me bend your ear for once. Ha ha." Hey, that's not funny at all. And he goes on to say, "Thanks for the workout video. Now if I can just get motivated and quit eating everything." Well, dang, Tom, you still haven't started that workout yet? Shame on you. And man, that makeshift truck stop sounds awful. I'm kind of glad your son got to see it, though. Maybe it'll teach him to go to college so he doesn't have to live the life of a trucker. And thanks for sticking with the podcast. I'm glad you're enjoying it. You know that makes you a little weird, right? Next up, a guy named JV wrote in on the videos of how to do a full-body workout inside the cab of a truck that I mentioned earlier. He writes, "I work in the North Dakota oil fields, and in winter, getting outside the truck for regular exercise is out of the question." Boy, no kidding, JV. He says, "I appreciate your videos on doing it in the sleeper. I'd rather go to the gym, but hey, I'm here to get my money and get out in 5 years. So until I can move back to a place with life, my days are spent in the truck 95% of the time, and these videos are helpful for me." Well, JV, that's by far the most practical use of my videos to date. I'm glad you found them useful. And thanks for dropping me a line to tell me about it. It's always good to hear that I'm not completely wasting my time on here. And hey, while we're on the subject of these videos, I'd like to give a shout out to Tom of the Jesus Freak Trucker podcast. He mentioned the videos and some very nice words about the production, about the Trucker Dump podcast and the production values on his podcast called the Jesus Freak Trucker podcast. It covers lots of things having to do with trucking, and of course, because of the name, you can imagine it also covers Christianity and how to live a good Christian life. It's a pretty cool podcast, so if you're interested in that sort of thing, go check out Jesus Freak Trucker podcast. And thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. Yeah, we got a few more. Let's just go ahead and pop them out so I can get all caught up. At least I can say I'm caught up for a change of pace. Steve writes in after hearing about the discussion we had about Texas and some states having different rules for their intrastate drivers, the guys who stay within the state. And he writes, "I just stumbled across this discussion and can comment about the Texas hours of service rules. They only apply to Texas intrastate drivers. My understanding that if you cross into interstate drive, the DOT can only apply interstate rules back to the previous reset or the last 7 days. With the new hours of service and restrictive 34-hour reset, this may be even more tangled. I drive in the oil fields in Texas, and my employer does not have interstate authorities, so we can never drive outside of Texas. As the previous poster said, our rules allow for 15 hours of on-duty time, 12 hours of drive time, and an 8-hour rest break, along with a 24-hour reset instead of 34 hours. I'm going to have to look into the 30-minute break rule. I don't know if that'll apply to us at all." Well, Steve, thanks for your input. Man, I'd kill for those rules, especially that 24-hour reset. That would totally rock. I just had a thought. If each state can make their own hours of service rules, then all we have to do to get around the national hours of service rules is to get every state to follow Texas's example. Surely we can get California on board, right? Yeah, right. And he actually wrote back and did let me know he made a couple of corrections. He said, for one thing, the 30-minute break is only mentioned in the interstate rules. So apparently that does not apply to intrastate drivers. He also forgot to mention that the 24-hour reset is not a Texas rule. It is a oil field rule. So anyway, thanks for all that, Steve. Appreciate you piping in on that. Next up, Jeff Stone writes in on the Spitting Christian Zealot podcast. That's Trucker Dump 76. He says, "Nicely done, brother. In my humble opinion, you gave an adequate yet easy to understand answer to some pretty hard questions here that most Christians really struggle with. Kudos to you, and hats off to the evil overlord for putting up with you." Yeah, Jeff. The evil overlord is a real saint. Psht. Thanks for the kind words, though. That was a tough one for me to write, and there are definitely some things I'd say a bit different if I were writing it now. But for the most part, I think it came out pretty darn good. I'm glad you think so, too. And these last two, I need some help. Because I didn't know, honestly. Mark writes in. He says, "I work for a fire department, and we have a fuel truck that carries less than 500 gallons. What are the requirements of the people driving the truck? It's a 6-wheel truck. Does it have to have mud flaps?" Okay, here's how I answered him. "Well, Mark, I'm not an expert on hauling hazmat, but I'll take a stab at it. Now, don't take my word for it, though. For all I know, fire departments may have special rules that the rest of us don't have to abide by, like running red lights, for instance. My understanding is that any hazardous material that needs to be placarded, that's those pretty colored diamond-shaped labels, that requires the driver of the vehicle to have a hazardous materials endorsement on their driver's license. Also, according to the DOT rules, any bulk container of over 119 gallons of hazmat must be placarded. So like I said, unless the fire department is exempt from these rules, I'd say whoever is driving the truck should have a hazmat endorsement on their license. As for the mud flaps, well, I'm honestly not sure. I know we big rig truckers can be ticketed for missing mud flaps, but I don't know if that pertains to the trucks of your size. Well, I hope this helps, Mark. And I told Mark that I would be asking about those mud flap things and if I got the hazmat things right. If I got them wrong, let me know." And the final one is from Leona. She was reading Trucker Dump 33, automatic or manual truck transmission. But, she says, "I have a question, but it's not related to automatic and manual transmissions. I'm going to be on the road with my husband soon, and I wanted to know if there's a website somewhere where people post sites that can be visited when you're traveling in a semi. I want to get to see some sites while I still can. Places like maybe Yellowstone or anything worth visiting that you can park a semi. When I'm trying to find something on the internet, I mostly just see restaurants. I'm not real interested in the food part, just scenic or historic stuff. Thanks." Well, people, tell me if I got it right. I wrote her back. "Well, Leona, I've got bad news for you. The website you're looking for doesn't exist. Well, not for truckers anyway. There are plenty of websites like roadtrippers.com to help you find stuff along your route, but as far as I know, none of them provide information on truck parking. I have a trucker friend named Kevin who does a lot of sightseeing on his bicycle. He does a blog called 18 Wheels and a 12-Speed Bike. That can be found at kevinmccague.wordpress.com. And his name is spelled KEVINMCKAGUE.wordpress.com. Link in the show notes, of course. Now, from what he tells me, he always has to call ahead to places to make sure they have truck parking. I'm sorry to bring you the bad news, Leona, but there you have it. Okay, peeps, did I get it wrong? Is there a website that gives you truck parking and places to visit? Places like Yellowstone and, well, I know for a fact you can't get the Grand Canyon in a semi. But, there's lots of other places out there, lots of national parks, and I don't know if they've got parking, and I don't know of a website that will tell you any of that stuff. Just that is specifically for trucks. So if you know of one, let me know, and I'll relay the news to Leona. I'll put it on the podcast, too. Appreciate your help. Okay, well, that does it. Man, this is one long episode. Well, you guys are drivers, most of you, so it's not like you had anything better to do than listen. I mean, you do drive for 11 hours a day, right? Okay, well, if you want to contact me, or if you've got an answer for Mark's fire truck question, or Leona's website question, give me a shout. Here's all my information. Okay, folks, there's no way possible that I thought of everything. So send in your ideas of what drivers could do to be more awesome people. As always, you can leave your thoughts on the comments section of the blog by going to abouttruckdriving.com, typing TD099 into the search bar. You can also shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com, or even tweet your way onto the show. Over there, I'm at Todd McCann. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. Now, if you've got a few seconds, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a review of the show on iTunes like new listener Shannon Holden recently did. Thanks, dude, for listening and for the review. And as always, thanks to all of you for listening again. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way.